Hey, everybody. Welcome back to She Sells, He Sells, where we are here to change the way you think about sales by getting you to look at it in a whole new way. And I'm really excited for you to meet Pamela Pekerman, who is our guest today. Hey, Pamela.
Hi, it's so nice to finally be doing this with you.
Yes, we have a story to tell all of you about this interview being a very long time in the making. But before we do that, we are going to start, as we do with all of our interviews, with a fun fact. And Pamela, I love your fun fact. So tell everybody this fun fact that some people might not know about you.
So, fun fact, I was a correspondent, specifically in accessories, for HSN and QVC. In fact, the really funny part was I got 2 emails because we're talking, the first run was like a good 15 years ago when I started. I got an email and I thought it was spam and I didn't respond. And then I got another one. I was like, okay, let me just call this number. They want me to test for something. Let me just call them. And long story short, I was still living at home. I was 23 years old. And with my parents, I'm like, Mom, Dad, I need to fly to Florida in like 2 weeks for this test. And we got like points together. I stayed at like whatever hotel down the roadside, like whatever, like the cheap, like literally whatever could be afforded. The test went well. And within 2 weeks, I was there to do my first, Today Show special. I had no idea what that was. But I will tell you, if you told me now that I need to sell air, I will convince you that you need to pay for the air that you're already breathing and then fill in the blank. Because I always say, and you and I talk about this, I feel like that's our love language.
Yes.
Where like I'm never selling anything. The biggest thing I learned at QVC and HSN is I'm telling a story and you're coming along for the ride. And the only reason you're not going to buy something is because I did something wrong with my story and I didn't dig into the emotions. So this was me in my early 20s, just getting the most insane education of my life, being there and seeing those anchors, those personalities. It was remarkable. I was 23 when I first did it. It was
That is wild.
scary.
How did they
So
find
scary.
you? Like, how did they know to reach out to you?
So my first, they were looking for somebody specifically for a handbag brand. The brand at the time that they wanted me to, my first project, the designer, I guess, wasn't doing well on air. Fine, not everybody's there, and they wanted somebody else. So they were searching, and I was a handbag trend forecaster. And if you searched for handbags, I would come up because I owned the domain. My last year in college, I bought bagtrends.com as a working resume that within a year became my career.
Wow.
And launched me to be like, I was the trend forecaster for the largest trade show for accessories in the world. And I was writing about bags and their celebrities. And back in the day, I'm going to take you back. VH1, The Fabulous Life Presents.
Yes.
I was their handbag girl. Like,
Oh
so
my
I would go
God.
on with those little clips
Yeah.
and say, Victoria Beckham's like $2 million, la, 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 or whoever, or Lindsay Lohan. I'm dating myself for who, the names that I talked about. But yeah, so they searched and they found me. And the rest was history. It was the best gift I ever got. I know I got paid, but it was the best gift to be on QVC for anything that I could ever do in the future.
I bet, because we talk about how you're always selling. 40% of your day, no matter what you do, is selling. And so when you learn to look at it that way, everything changes. And so it really was trial by fire with you, right?
Oh,
Mhm.
oh my gosh. My husband always jokes. He'll always remember this one time because he's watching me on TV. I'm live. This is exciting. This was like a Today Show special. So you're on basically for that 24-hour slot. And the display that they made for this like 1 o'clock slot 1 a.m. slot that I was on at that time fell over. Like the bag started falling over. And in my mind, I'm dying. Like, what the heck am I supposed? This is like my second time out, right? I had just done the first one at like 10 p.m. and now I'm back for 1 a.m. And the first thing that came to me was, oh my gosh, these bags are so hot. They're literally flying off the shelves. My husband called me during my next break and he's like, that's it. You're there. Like, and I didn't realize that I could improv because it's a form of acting, right? I mean, and as you can tell, I'm, very animated.
Mhm.
And that was it. And then I just started telling stories about how that bag could be in your life. And if you could see it, you would want it, even if you didn't need it, like air that you already have.
Right. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I think there is nothing like just figuring it out when it comes to selling. People are always say it. I mean, there's so many pieces of the puzzle, your messaging and you can learn frameworks for sure, but then you just have to do it. And that's a perfect example of that. I would love to talk QVC all day, but the real reason that we're here is we want to talk about motherhood and entrepreneurship. And it's kind of ironic that we are talking about this because the day our first interview was scheduled was 18 months ago, which is wild. And you were just a little busy that day. Why don't you tell everybody what happened that day that we were supposed to have our interview?
So we set our interview date, and I went into labor. So I knew so here's the thing. This was my third. I have a 12-year-old, a 10-and-a-half-year-old, and now this 18-month-old lovely dessert baby, I call her. And because they're the best.
Yes.
And I knew I would go early. Like I sensed it. I know like whoever's listening who's had kids, like I don't know if you're like this, but like you feel it. You're like, no, you have the date. Plus each of the two previous times I went about 3 weeks earlier. So kind of knew how I function. But I'm like, I'm going to roll the dice. I mean, I got this. Long story short, yes, I called you. I'm like, I'm going to deliver sometime in the next like 12 to 18 hours. Like I'm feeling it. And so then we kept like changing the date. And it was always, by the way, speaking of motherhood, right? It was always something having to do with kids that we like you or I had to like postpone. And I was thinking about this yesterday and I thought, what a beautiful thing that we're doing this now finally, but that we are in a circle where for the most part we work with women and there's a level of she's not coming up with an excuse. That kid had 104 fever. That baby was being born. And I feel like if we were in a movie, they would show me on the I wouldn't cancel. I would be on the phone. I would and you know what? That's not okay. We don't need to live like that. I know the brand says, I came up with this one in 2016, hustle like a mom. But I always say that hustle is defined by you. And it's not about the 24-hour hustle. It's just really good messaging. Let's be honest. Hustle like a mom is just a good messaging. But it's not about that constant. It's about figuring out, right? We've all heard that phrase. What are our glass balls and what are our plastic? And I can drop a plastic, like, and on that day, not an offense to the podcast. The podcast was plastic. And I was like, this is probably my last time at the rodeo. Let's do this, Steve. And I was like, we're going. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, it's coming. Yeah. It's coming.
Yeah. And what was the day that your baby was born, your baby girl?
October 10th.
Okay, because my birthday is October 9th. And so I remember I was like, oh, she's going to have my birthday. And then it ended up being the 10th.
Like the next, yeah.
But yeah, it's so true. I think the word hustle has gotten such a bad rap over the last few years. And because it's exactly what you said to me, it's really what you make of it. And entrepreneurship does require hustle. I mean, you can't sit back and let it come to you. It requires that forward motion and that momentum, and that you have to create yourself. But always motherhood first. I know you feel that way. So do I. And we build our businesses around our lives, not our lives around our businesses. So let's get into some of this motherhood entrepreneurship topic. I read that you said you describe yourself as a suburban mom with an urban mindset, which I'm so into because I'm much farther removed from an urban area than you are. You're right outside New York City. Or are you in New York City, or where exactly?
We're in Westchester. So I'm about, commute wise, a half an hour on our train, 45 plus minutes if I'm driving.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit about this idea, suburban mom with an urban mindset. What does that mean to you?
So I came up with this sort of tagline. It was probably around 2017, 2018, when I saw that Hustle Like a Mom was becoming more than what originally it was, which was a YouTube series where I was interviewing other women that I felt were doing, creating, and redefining what it means to be a working mom. I'm not sure if I fully fleshed that out in my mind, but I knew that it could be something. Mind you, by the way, I should preface that I was doing this while still trying, making money from like TV, like HSNs or campaigns going on as an ambassador. So I'm not one of those like, just do it. I'm like, no, you have bills and things and all the other stuff. So it was like in parallel. So that idea of, and I knew we were going to be moving to the suburbs. I'd never lived in the suburbs in my life. I was a Brooklyn girl, born and raised, all the things. And love Manhattan and at any city, anywhere. So I knew we were going to move to the burbs, and I needed to figure out what does that look like for me, and then also as a businesswoman, like what is that lifestyle going to look like? And so that's why I came up with, well, I'm living in the burbs, but I have an urban mindset. And it's almost interesting because now 10 years later, I'm debating whether that shifts a little bit, because I think it almost like dates the brand. So it's actually interesting you're bringing this up, because we're like love messaging, you and I.
Yeah.
But the idea was that I know where I live, but I know that I have a little, like, my bustle and my pace is a little bit different. Fast forward, interestingly, like to the next decade of my life, as I sit here now at 41 and not 30, at 31.
Yeah.
And, another decade is another mindset and another sort of shift a little bit in values. I'm still bustling. And like you said, if you're an entrepreneur, nothing's coming to you. There's no, you are the magic wand.
Yes.
You are your own fairy prince and princess, whatever. You're the fairy godmother. You are your own with the wand. And so I'm just a little bit more strategic with my wand now. But that idea before was, and I think it still resonates with many women who partake in the Hustle Like a Mom community, is that idea of I'm living this lifestyle in the suburbs, which is one kind of feel and flow, but my pulse and my pace is urban. So if that kind of,
Yes.
that felt right at 31, it speaks a little bit differently in my 40s. But I think overall, like the overarching feel is that in my 30s, when I started Hustle Like a Mom, in my early 30s, I felt that the ambitions of my 20s were no longer serving me in my 30s. So I was no longer the girl that wanted to live in the city and revolve my entire life around my business. But I was also not the mom that wanted to revolve her life only around motherhood. And that's when, and where I find myself now in sort of the happy 40s, because I very happy 40s, is I want to diversify my joy.
Yes.
And that's where I am with my career, with my spouse, with my children, with the projects I pick, with the, the podcasts and the places I show up, is how can I diversify my joy and make sure that that is in alignment with my values?
Yes, I love the diversify my joy. That's such a good thing for us to remember. So when you started Hustle Like a Mom, how old was your oldest?
Ilana was about 1.5.
Okay. So
Yeah.
tell me
And
about
half two. Yeah.
what was happening in your life as a woman, as a mother, that you really saw the need for this YouTube series? What was that identity shift like for you?
So I actually had just come. So I was a TV correspondent. I used to pitch my own TV segments to stations across the country. I'd come up with the concept. The producer would say yes. We would tweak back and forth, etc. And then sometimes I was also hired by brands as a brand ambassador, and then I would get paid for like these tours. So I came back from this one tour of 3 cities back to back, and I squeezed them into like a day and a half or 2 days. I come back. I'm home. I get them from daycare. Obviously, there's like there's sitters, there's grandparents, there were all kinds of pieces that every week looked different. Every week I had because there was nothing consistent. I had no consistent sitter. It was like a constant puzzle every week. And I came back and it just struck me, like what I just said a few moments ago. I was like, I know I'm fully in control and I'm already an entrepreneur. Why am I so disappointed today? I just got paid. I went to 3 cities. I had breakfast quietly alone in a hotel in the morning, which is always a treat for a mom. It just didn't feel right. And so that's when I started to think in my mind of like, oh, wait a minute. Let's see, Alana was 2. Yeah. And David was about 1. And eventually it occurred to me that the ambitions of my 20s may not be serving me in my 30s. What is my and then what? And so being a journalist by trade, I thought to myself, well, why don't I start a series? It was originally on Facebook and then it moved to YouTube, and I called it originally Mommy Moments, but that stuck for like 5 seconds. And then it became Hustle Like a Mom. And I wanted to interview women that were doing, creating, and in some way I felt redefining what it means to be a working mom. And that's still the theme is how can we redefine what it means to be a working mom? Because that visual that we saw in movies for so many decades, and we still do, although COVID definitely moved the needle. How can I be a part of that conversation? So it really was frustration made me start it, because how could I, somebody who was already an entrepreneur and writing my own journey, be unhappy? Wasn't I in control? So I needed to almost step back and say, you are in control, but just because something served you in your 20s, or like right now in my 30s, in my, previously in my 30s, doesn't mean that it's going to serve me in my next decade. So
Mhm.
I can keep rolling, which many of us do,
Mhm.
or I can, and when I say take a step back, I don't mean like pull away from your business, like quit your job, leave your corporate. That's not everybody's reality. But can I take a mental page? Can I journal? Can I, get a new way to like strategize my value? What are the tools that I can come up with? And that's really how Hustle Like a Mom evolved, from a YouTube series to events to, and then obviously COVID's like a whole 5-hour conversation, right?
Yeah.
To, tools and tips that I say are realistic and applicable for moms and like women that want to run a business, as we say in Hustle Like a Mom, between drop off and pick up.
Yeah.
Like I pretty much turn into a pumpkin at 3:30
Same.
by choice, right? So I
Mhm.
should say that that's by choice. And that's the beautiful thing, to have the ability to make that choice.
Yes, I wanted to talk about the drop off and pickup, or between drop off and pickup. Yes, I am a little past that with my kids. I mean, as you know, your kids are going to school, but the now I have an 18-year-old and an almost 16-year-old, and then I have a 10-year-old, and so they require less of me, but in some ways they require less like physical things of me, but they still require a lot of emotional support, even more the older they get. And so when they come home from school, whether they're coming home right after high school or they're doing something after school and I'm not seeing them till 7 or 8, I need to be fresh and ready for them, not stuck on my laptop. Sometimes that happens, but overall it is about being ready. So let's talk a little bit about how do you do that? How do you take those, like, let's say 6 hours, because by the time you get them to drop them off and pick them up, there's not a lot of time. That's if you have a school age child. If they're in preschool, it's a lot shorter often. So what are some tips for maximizing that short amount of time that mothers who are entrepreneurs get?
Sure. And by the way, if we did this 2 years ago, I would have a different answer, right?
Yeah.
Because now with the baby, I have actually structured in such a way that Monday and Tuesday are my absolute, by the way, so routine is obviously important.
Yes.
My routine now is Monday and Tuesday is just my Emily days. So I don't want a sitter here. I don't want, and bless my sitter. But I don't want anybody here. I don't want a sitter. I don't want my mom here. I don't want my father-in-law here. That's my team, my support team.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Wednesday through Friday, I do have somebody who helps me with Emily, but I'm here most of the day, so I can still pop in. So that's my love.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as, everybody has their own version of, like, you have a toddler at home. How do you maximize that pocket of time?
Mm-hmm.
So, about 4 years ago, we put out the first Edit to Expand planner through Hustle Like a Mom. And it's really taken 5+ years of me saying the same thing over and over again to myself and
Mm-hmm.
to clients. Okay, how do we edit in order to truly expand? Like, what can you remove from your agenda in order to reclaim control? Because it's almost counterintuitive, but don't I have to put more in order to get more? Actually, if you're putting in, you're taking away most likely from where you need to properly show up.
Mm-hmm.
So as part of the method, one of the first things I say is we do what's called VAM, value action mode. And so can you set 3 values for the year? Because they could potentially change slightly every year. And when we define values in the Edit to Expand method, it's not, I always say, well, people want to say family. Of course, I value my kids, my family. And I say, well, I just want you to reframe value just for the purposes of our exercise and ask yourself, do you make or do you want to make every single decision around your kids or your family? And if the answer is no, that's okay. So for instance, my values this year are intimacy, and I'll explain in a second. Intimacy,
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
intimacy, philanthropy, and gatherings. And so what does that look like and by the way, other values examples could be mourning. It could be, you value creativity. So how does that play into your decision making? Because ultimately these values are meant to be a compass where you say yes, where you say no. And it's very important when I do this with clients, this value action mode exercise, that we make sure we quiet out your ego. Because ego, like in my 20s, oh, that girl was so active. And sometimes she still pops up and I'm like, no, you're making poor decisions for me. My ego would say, you value being, for example, on the Today Show. But that's actually not something that I'm pursuing this year, because, and for many reasons, and it doesn't align with the values that I've set. So, for instance, I mentioned gatherings.
Mm-hmm.
Biggest part of my business and my personal life, so professional, personal, is I love getting people together.
Mm-hmm.
So I will sign up for the charity if a component of that is me somehow engaging in the events, the gathering of people, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
For Hustle Like a Mom, many things have been removed this year, but the two most important things I will not remove is our signature events that we do twice a year in the tri-state area, and my mastermind roundtable, because to me that's gatherings. And by the way, it's also intimacy. So
Mm-hmm.
intimacy was the one you asked about.
Yeah.
And that this was the first year where when I sat down and I got really quiet,
Mm-hmm.
because quiet is such a gift, and it's a tool. It's a silence is a business tool we often do not use, and
Oh,
it's a
that's good.
gift.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Thank you. Oh, I felt it too when I went quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Silence is a business tool we often don't use, and it's very valuable, and it's free. It's wonderful, just like oxygen. I made it before. And so when I got silent, I realized that with the baby, with, some of the things that are happening in the world that are impacting
Mm-hmm.
me and my community, I value intimacy. So I wanted to do events that were not going to be large. By large, I mean like no more than like 40, 50.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me is intimate.
Mm-hmm.
I limited my roundtable to 10 women. I could go more, but I don't want to. And that's my choice at 41. Would I have made that choice at 21? No,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
So to go back to the question, I would say, as far as a resource of how do I make the most of my time, is to know what is actually precious to you.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to decode your values and making sure it's not your ego talking. It's not societal expectations, because those are nasty too sometimes. It's not your neighbor. It's not what Kristen wants for you. It's not what Pamela wants for you. It's when everything is silent and you take the time and you do the work that most of us never do.
Mm-hmm.
And I I almost shake when I say this, because in like a good way, because I have had clients drastically change their lives. And by the way, I should say, because I just had an example of a client of mine on Tuesday. I was so happy. Did that work and has actually seen April being her this coming April. I know we're probably recording this and it's going to run in May, but this coming month for her is going to be the most profitable she's ever had,
Wow.
because
So,
she got quiet and real.
so for someone listening, and this shouldn't be a foreign concept for us, but it kind of is, because we are taught to hustle and hustle hard and go, go, go. And I think in this online business marketplace that we're all living in, it's like, I got to post and I got to send the email. And so you're just sometimes can feel like you're spinning in circles. And I feel you on the silence, because I know when I take a step back, like a mini little sabbatical, even if it's for a week in my business, there's so much clarity and creativity that comes from it. But for someone who's listening, who's like, gosh, I've never thought of this before, if you can get silent, what do you do? Like, what would you spend that silence on? Can you really explain a little bit of what that process could look like for someone so that they can
Sure.
step back a
I
bit?
can even suggest. So one of the other things that I noticed myself doing, and then especially during COVID, like I went double down on this, and I started telling clients about it, was I do something called a faux commute. So even before COVID, much of my business was in the home space. So I would leave if I obviously had a TV segment, and I'd leave if I had to go to like a press preview back in the day. But most of my writing, except all the things, they happened around the home space. So I wasn't new to working from home before COVID started. Um, and I used to just go for a walk in the morning. So when the kids went to daycare, I'd go for a walk. And, fast forward to, 2023, when we put out our first Edit to Expand planner, I was like, you know what, this full commute is so important. I really need to speak more about it. And I incorporate it as a daily good to do underneath. And I explain to clients, and I say, well, why is it important? Now there's, by the way, a year ago, a study came out. So I was very happy. I was validated by science. So when your morning routine ends, meaning whatever that could look like, the lunches, the breakfast, the bottles, the kid, whatever that morning routine could look, and if your kids are older, maybe it looks different. You need to separate yourself from that morning routine and do a faux commute, because it actually creates what's called scientifically called luminal space. It's a breath. We were talking about silence. And I always say, this is not, if you have 5 minutes, great. If you have 15, amazing. This is not the 5 to 15 minutes where you're packing in productivity. That's where we're trying to like undo the hustle, the negativity of the hustle. These 5 to 15 minutes, I'm not calling my mom, although I love her very much. I'm not listening to your podcast, although I love your podcast. It's my silence. I want to hear the birds, but I also just want to hear myself. So I'm as much, and this doesn't always work when I walk, but that idea of, can I slow it down? Can I just hear whatever's going on in there? So that's one very practical tool. By the way, if you can't go outside, it's raining, it's pouring, the old man is snoring, whatever's going on outside, go for a walk. I don't care if it's back and forth in your kitchen, right? You want to like hop with your body, but the idea is it's not about productivity. It's really, honestly, it's not even exercise, although it is. It's a space of silence. There's a great quote, I don't remember where it comes from, that says, you can't see your reflection in running water.
Oh, that's really good.
Don't know where it came from. If you find it, let me know. You can find me on Instagram. I'd love to know where it came from. I don't remember. But that idea that if I don't, and when people get scared by this whole slow down, right? If I don't stop, how can I ever know what's really happening? Right. And again, even if you're in your 20s, although I imagine, just based on your messaging, probably your audience is in that like 30s to 50s, plus space. Even if you're in your early 30s, there is a gift of silence. So whether you want to try the faux commute, which I think it's my gift to me. And I know that, again, it's that luminal space. Yes, it sets your circadian rhythm, all the science stuff, la, la, la. Yes. But it's peace. It's my time to be. And I come back recharged in a way that I could have never been if I just straight to the emails, straight to the recordings, even, by the way, even like straight to your workout, whatever it is, just get yourself that space. So that's probably one of my favorite gifts to give myself, is a non-productive faux commute.
That's so good. I've never heard that before, but it makes such perfect sense. I was actually just talking with my daughter. She's a competitive dancer, and we were talking about her friend that lives far away from dance, and how her friend says she really loves leaving dance and having her 30-minute drive home, because it allows herself to just kind of reset before she walks in. And, Emmy, my daughter, was like, we live 5 minutes from the studio. And so she's like, oh, I feel like I go from that and then I come right in here and I don't have that. And it's such a great reminder of that we do need that reset when, especially as mothers, because most of the time in the mornings, even I have teenagers, but I'm always awake when they're getting out the door and like, did you remember this? And don't forget this. And wait, did you eat any breakfast? Are you taking lunch with you? So you're still mothering in the mornings when you have kids in your house, no matter how old they are. And then to immediately go to the laptop, you don't get to reset. And that's where I think we get a little frantic and crazy. So, that is gold. It's really good.
And I love, you mentioned your daughter, and now I'm thinking, I even try to get this with my kids, but now that you mentioned this, I'm going to try to do this even more intentionally, that they also need to come home and like a reset, right? Our kids these days, although I try my very best to mother kind of how my mother did, but our kids these days, especially in the suburbs, there are more activities than I was used to when I was growing up as like an immigrant kid in Brooklyn. It was just like a different ball game. But I had time to reset. I had time to like sit with my grandma after school, or, I'm thinking back, like we would go on walks and then I would start my homework. And I had less activities certainly than my kids do, but our kids need that almost mirror, right? Monkey see, monkey do. They need to see us. It's not just chill. It's just you're cleaning the palette. Like if the computer is never closed or like rebooted or whatever it is, it's eventually going to like whatever. I'm not a techie in that way. Like, circuit wire is going to go.
Yeah.
I don't want my computer to go, right? That's
exactly.
Not English, but you get me.
Yeah, I totally understand. We speak sales and messaging languages. We're not tech girls. Yeah, no, it's really, really powerful. It reminded me when you started talking about your Edit to Expand planner and how it's about what can you take out. One of my good friends is an interior designer, and she always says half of decorating is undecorating. She goes into people's spaces and it's like they just have stuff everywhere. And in order to see what you really want, you have to take a lot out. And I think it's the same thing with our lives, like half of
Yeah.
productivity is taking out the tasks that you're doing so you can be really good at the things that you have, for
No,
sure.
I love your interior design analogy. That's so
That's
true
good.
because and my sister is an interior designer and
Mhm.
she would probably love this as well. I'm going to share this with her
Yeah.
afterwards. Is that idea if you value that vase, right? If
Mhm.
that vase is so important to you, but it's behind six other like little tchotchke doohickeys,
Mhm.
if you put that forward and got rid of the six and then reminded yourself that you don't need any more, don't
Mhm.
buy any
Right,
more,
right.
that beautiful vase that you got from your aunt, that's like very much aligned with the value concept, right?
Mhm.
It's you value that vase just as much as I value intimacy, say more than, the like a large event.
Mhm.
And it's like that compass of when somebody comes to the table and says to me, I'd really love for you to host a summit and here's a budget. I don't know what that number, that's just the fact. I don't know what that number would have to be in order for me to fully change the trajectory of where I envision my year.
Mhm.
I can't even fathom
Mhm.
what that would have to be, really. I'm sure there probably is a number, but even then, you like, does it really fit in with my values? Is that sponsor, by the way, for those who are like collaborators in any space, is that partner aligned with my values? Oh,
Mhm.
she has high numbers, a great email list, but is she going to give you the people that actually want your product and
Right.
want your service? So those that and that you don't know that until you take the time to slow down, do the value driven, planning and
Mhm.
operate that year, your coming year with that perspective.
Mhm.
And I know, somebody could be listening to this in the middle of the year and they're like, oh, well, it's not January 1st. And I'm always like, so what?
Yeah.
So it's August 1st. Well, I mean,
Exactly.
who cares what day it
Exactly.
is?
Yeah.
The best day to do it is yesterday, right? The worst day to do is tomorrow. Guess what? Today's your gift.
Yes.
Today's your gift.
It's so good. I always say if I ever write a book, one of my possible titles is Start on a Thursday, because I think this idea of waiting for Monday, waiting for the new, month, the year, it drives me insane because you just never know. Like you have to start now. Another one of my phrases is ready is a decision, not a feeling. And so it is that like, just do it and lean into this and start changing the trajectory of your life, your business by giving
That
yourself a
first title is brilliant. I want you to immediately trademark and get the
Okay.
domain name for it. I have two publishers for you.
Okay,
That
perfect.
is okay.
All right.
I'm like, yes.
Let's write a
See,
book.
like, I don't know if you ever show this on like a video format, but like these two columns right here, aside from the planner and pictures of my kids, these are most of my friends, many of whom I've held hands with during their book days.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm like, and it's so funny because one of them is like, so what about you? When is your run? I'm like, I'm not there yet, but I
Mhm.
like holding my friends' hands.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, I got your publisher.
Okay, great.
What's up?
Amazing. Great. All right, we'll talk. So you mentioned with this, like the power of taking space and giving yourself this faux commute and I talked about my daughter and how your kids see what you do. And I'm a firm believer in, you know, they are we can preach and we can tell stories and we can sell our kids and guide our kids, and that works to an extent, but what really works is showing them by the way we live our lives. So when we're talking about entrepreneurship and motherhood, what would you say some of the lessons? You have a 12-year-old and 11-year-old, right?
12, 10 and a half,
12 and
and
10
the
and a half.
baby. Yeah.
Okay, so 12, 10 and a half. The baby obviously is a little too young to be able to see it yet, but we will see it with her in a few years. What would you say are some lessons that they've learned by just watching you? Or are there any things they've done that you see and you're like, oh, I know that's because of this path that I'm on?
So interestingly enough, taking back to COVID. So when COVID hit, I'm a product of Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, like refugees that came here.
Mhm.
Mindset very different. So when COVID hit, my kids were 5 and just shy of 6, and I said to them, "Don't listen to what they're telling you in school. I'm telling you, you're not going back. This is not good." Like I didn't sugarcoat it. I was like, "They're gonna tell you in 2 weeks you might come back. In a month you're gonna come back." I'm like, "This is not happening." Plus, my grandmother, who was still alive and 95, was a pediatrician who long story short, she told me exactly what was going to happen, and she knew it to a T. Her science was down to the year of when this would evolve. It was
Wow.
mind boggling. So I was prepared. Long story short, so for a year and a half, we did not go back to school. I homeschooled. I kept them here for a year and a half. They saw Hustle Like a Mom firsthand evolve in a very, very big way. They were on the floor quietly during Zooms when I went live on TV. They witnessed me writing and launching my first course. They sat here through many one-on-ones. Like if the screen is here, they would be behind me quietly, like playing. So they saw it evolve, and so they even now, like if I'm launching something or doing a program, they'll ask, "Okay, did you hit the numbers you wanted? How is so and so's branding going?"
So cute.
Yeah. So the lesson, and also, so they see me with a concept and coming to fruition. And I was always somebody that was, I'm very scared of like the end, like the finish off. Like I'm very good with ideas. And then the finish off, right? That's the hardest part,
Yes.
right? Isn't it just getting it there? And so, this was 2021. In 2021, when I did my first Master Your Messaging, which is the course that I wrote, I cried, and they saw that because I had brought something I wanted so badly and wrote it over months. It was like a very long tail. They saw that. And so for them to be able to see that you can have an idea, but in order to bring it to fruition, you actually have to take the action. So maybe we remove the word hustle, but you take the actions and you put in the sweat equity. They know that nothing just happens. I can't just sit here in my own bubble and expect it to happen. So it's for me, it's very gratifying that I work so much from home because they see the fruits of the labor. Like my mastermind meets in my home.
Oh,
Like
wow, that's amazing.
yes. I have one client who only can come on a Tuesday. So every 3 months while Emily sleeps, it's once a month. So I make an exception. She comes while Emily sleeps.
Aw.
You know what I mean? Like, so they see also, by the way, they see the choices I'm making. And maybe my daughter and son will make similar choices. And like maybe they want, and I include my son because maybe he's going to have a version of, work from home. I don't know what the next generation career like looks like. But I want them to see that I'm leading with my values. And they know the planning method. We've talked through it. I've, refined it for them. They know I do. Oh, what are you doing? Because they know in December-ish when I'm on vacation, there's one thing I do, and it's my year at a glance. They're like, oh, what are you doing? Because I see your colored pens and your da, 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 da. I'm like, well, mommy's aligning her personal and professional aspirations, and she's planning for the power of the pause, which is what we do at the beginning of the year. So mommy's not overwhelmed, and that's, by the way, the second step of like Edit to Expand is that year at a glance. And they see this. So they see me consciously making choices to have a life that is both emotionally fulfilling, financially fulfilling, because that's part of the package. And I hope that they model those choices as well. Again, like going back to even like the faux commute, I like encourage them to do some version of that when they come home from school. I want them to make choices based on their values and not their little egos and their neighbor and their friends, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah. So good. And agree. Like I really think, obviously I'm partial to entrepreneurship, but I think being a working mom in some way, shape, or form is so powerful. In the lessons that it teaches your kids. I was a stay-at-home mom for about maybe a year of my entire motherhood journey, and that was incredible and very, very hard for me. It just was not the path for me. And so if you're a stay-at-home mom, like go on with your bad self. I think that's amazing. And I think that working moms can also give such great gifts. And of course, I'm partial to entrepreneurship as you are. I think there's just really amazing lessons in there. So, as we start to wrap up, Pamela, what would you say? Two quick questions. What would you say is the one thing that you see tripping mompreneurs up when it comes to balancing those two identities?
Probably the word balance itself,
Yeah.
right? And I know, look, we're word girls, you and I.
Yes.
So, I choose the word alignment. Somebody might say that that's the same thing as balance, but I always say I'm trying to align my personal and professional aspirations. And how do I get there? And so, I think one of the things that trip up a lot of entrepreneurs, by the way, men and women, I should say, but specifically with moms, is they get distracted by darling ideas, right? They're walking around, or they're on Instagram, or they're at that summit with the other ones, and they're like, oh, it's like a pretty shiny thing. It's like, oh my goodness, Kristen's doing a podcast, and Sarah just launched so and so, so I should. And so then it goes on your list. That anxiety, now it becomes an anxiety list. And so I think that being able to avoid darling ideas is probably the one way to not trip up. And so when we go back to like the edit to expand method, every quarter I sit down with myself or my clients or the inner circle of Hustle Like a Mom, and we pick 3 very specific goals, and they are categorized in a very strategic way to help you avoid darling ideas. And I say that these 3 are immediate enough to last 3 months, manageable enough to be completed within 3 months. And then we build the next quarter the 3 similar themes. One is amplify your brand, a money move, and a decrease stressor. And I explain it like the whole method I won't get into, but we pick 3 very specific goals, and you have these, and you're able to now have the tools to not be at that summit where you meet Krista and you're like, oh my God, her podcast is so amazing. That's why this must be happening. And this, and her podcast is amazing for her, but it could be a darling idea for you. And so I say, okay, if it's really exciting, maybe you want to put it in your parking lot. And so I create this tool where I say, okay, park it in your parking lot. And then when you start the next quarter, ask yourself, am I going to drive that car today? Is that the goal? Or was that really a darling idea that didn't even need to be in my wheelhouse this year? Right?
Yeah. I love how you speak in analogies. Is exactly what I do. As you're talking, I'm like, oh yes, the parking lot, the car. And we're 2 of a kind in that way. Yeah, that's such a good point. And I do struggle with that. I think most entrepreneurs do, because we come to entrepreneurship because we're visionaries, we're creatives, and we have a lot of ideas. Ideas are very rarely the issue. And so it's deciding what ideas are in line with my values and what is actually going to help move the needle in my business and my life. And so then the last question, let's say there's a mom that's listening right now. Maybe she is a stay-at-home mom, or maybe she is working another full-time job and she has this dream of entrepreneurship. Is there a piece of advice you can give her right now as she's really weighing her options? Does she jump into entrepreneurship?
So, not knowing obviously our fictitious person's scenario, I would say it's almost never a good idea to just do it. And so that's why I say you need to know your reality, and everybody's reality is different. And therefore everybody's strategy should be different. I would say that take a look at your financial situation, right? That's I'm a realist. Like I said, like I'm a first generation immigrant. My parents came to this country with zero. Like there's no way that my mother could have been making the choices that I'm making, because my husband and I are now, and he also came to this country as from a different country. So I always come to this perspective of like, I promise you when I say that I've been through the entire gamut of financial living, if you will. And so I really understand the realities of life and bills and all the things, and coming out of school with insane debt. So to the woman who's either at the corporate job or she's a stay-at-home mom, to the corporate one, I would say, if you may very well not be able to leave your corporate job. So can you begin to warm up your concept, right? Journal about it, and about the concept. Do you share it with a small pool of trusted friends to see if it's viable? And by the way, and that tip applies to the stay-at-home mom as well. I think before we jump in, it's really great to get like a little bit of market feedback, right? To just make sure that you're not the only one that wants this, because the market will always dictate. And so talking about it with friends, people are always concerned, well, somebody's going to steal my idea. Like, you know what? Everybody's tired. Nobody's really stealing your idea.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, there are scenarios, right? If you're working on a patent, okay, yes, but or something that's trademarkable. But I would say start to share it. Make it a little bit more real. Make it real on paper, because pen to paper, that's why I only do the planner actually physically and not digitally. Pen to paper makes something real. It triggers neurons in your brain that actually tell you that this is important. So start writing about it. start talking about it with your friends. If it's applicable to you, maybe the first thing you do is start a newsletter. Even before you've launched something, people buy from, going back to our, our sales of love for sales, people buy from people. That is a fact. I just recently finally met Sarah Blakely, who, I mean, I
Oh,
can't
so jealous.
stop. I can't, an hour, please, if not a whole day to discuss,
Okay,
but
okay.
I can't. All the things
Mm,
to be in a part two.
okay, part two,
Um,
yes.
and she also talks about people buy from people, right? When she was, and I'm not going to share her story, but everybody knows like the fax machines and selling, and
Mm,
people want to believe in you. So if you want to do anything, go to like whatever, like a MailChimp, something that's free, like a zero, right? Again, like I said, I come from a place where I had no startup capital
mhm,
and da, da, da. Start a newsletter.
yeah.
Who cares if you're writing to 10 people? If you can be as passionate to 10 people as you would be to 10,000
Mhm,
forever, by the way, then you're golden. So show your passion for a topic. And then when you start cooking sessions, when you decide that you're going to start making, I don't know, writing a book, offering your services, your painting classes, whatever it may be, you have a base.
mhm,
And don't negate the fact that 10 or 50 people in some base is the beginning of something,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Yeah. So I would say start talking about it, make it real from your heart, and make it real in your circle.
Yeah. Oh, so good. You and I could talk all day. We are so aligned in that. There's your word. We are so aligned in so many ways, and I really want to hear about Sarah Blakely. So we will have to have you back, Pamela. One thing before I wrap it up, I just want to say, you are a true champion of other women. I've gotten to know you just through Instagram, and I got the opportunity to come and speak to your group, and we've been back and forth on doing this, and we were connected by some mutual friends, but you really are a champion of other women, and you do such a great job of it. So anyone that is listening that needs that champion in their life, Pamela is your girl. So tell everybody where to find you.
Thank you. So you can go to Hustle Like a Mom, where you can learn about all the offerings we do, whether it's Inner Circle, which is our intimate group, as well as my mastermind and one-on-one sessions. And if you're in the tri-state area, maybe you'll be able to join us at an event in New York or New Jersey. And of course, I'm on Instagram personally at Pamela Pekerman, and then with the business at Hustle Like a Mom.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this great conversation. And we will be back next week, everybody. Bye.